people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Baumgardner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. I'm sure most of you have heard by now. It was announced yesterday. Alicia Baumgardner is set to defend her title for the first time since her overturned doping tests. Alicia Baumgardner will defend her WBC 130-pound title and the others versus Delphine Persoon on September 27th in Atlanta, the champion told ESPN, which we previously discussed here on the channel. Detroit's Baumgardner will be fighting for the first time since last July when she defeated Cristina Leonardatu in a rematch to retain her undisputed junior lightweight championship. Baumgardner's sample 3 days before that fight tested positive for a banned substance, but after an investigation, the WBC in January found her not guilty of intentional ingestion or consumption of a banned substance for a PED. The Association of Boxing Commissions lifted Baumgardner's temporary suspension in March, paving the way for her return.
She beat the case.
Unlike Ryan Garcia and some others who have attempted to beat their anti-doping cases, Alicia actually won hers, but she still ended up losing a lot of time away from the ring, which is a separate matter. The Global Combat Collective won the rights to this mandatory title defense against Persoon with a $500,000 bid in March, a record number for a WBC women's title fight. Baumgardner's WBA, WBO, and IBF titles won't be on the line. The fight will be held on the Lux stage at Trilith Studios in Atlanta and available for free on Brinks TV and Fubo Sports.
Not the Zone.
Or any other widely recognized platform that normally airs boxing matches. Delphine is a great sportsman, trailblazer for the sport, said Baumgardner, 30 years old, though she doesn't look a day over 25. And again, being off a year and coming back to fight and defend my title against an opponent like that is very telling. Just to say, I'm here to accept challenges, there's no excuses, and that I'll come out victorious and still have my belts. Baumgardner owns a fourth-round TKO victory over Terry Harper and a split decision win over Michaela Mayer, who just so happens to be fighting that same day.
What?
The pair of victories helped establish her as one of the top 5 women pound for pound. Delphine Persoon, 49-3 with 19 KOs, is a former WBC champion from Belgium. The 39-year-old last fought in November of last year opposite the ring Agustina Rojas.
That's not what that says.
I know, that's because what that says is wrong. Delphine has seen action in the last 12 months. She fought in November.
Oh.
Persoon is ESPN's number 10 pound-for-pound boxer. She dropped a decision to Katie Taylor back in 2019 and a UD in the rematch 2 fights later. Baumgardner, who is promoted by Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Boxing, said she will be a free agent after this fight. She's targeting the winner of Taylor versus Serrano, their rematch, for the undisputed 140-pound crown. I don't want to take any less of a fight than that one, Baumgardner said. Give me Katie, give me Amanda. It just makes sense in terms of where we are at this stage. And I know they seem to be on their way out, but I think we can make an actual boxing fight and not an event on a big stage with either Katie or Amanda. I can definitely go to 140. It seems that Alicia has plans of bypassing 135 and shooting straight up to 140. Though if she wins her next fight and enters free agency, leaves Matchroom, does that not put distance between her and that fight? Say if Katie Taylor wins the rematch.
She says she'll enter free agency after the Persoon fight, but if she does and she leaves Matchroom, she's gonna leave Matchroom to go where?
If it's a Taylor fight you want, you're already in the right place. And say that Katie loses. Amanda wins the rematch. She wins the second fight.
I don't know that Alicia is going to have access to that fighter because that would leave the door open for a trilogy, a Taylor versus Serrano trilogy.
Alicia Baumgardner herself took to her social media saying, "Let me clear up some confusion. Back in March, the purse bid was won by GCC. They have the rights to the fight. This specific event is an exclusive private event, so it's not open to the public for tickets.
What?
It will be distributed for free to watch on Brinks TV and Fubo TV.
Who's going to be on the undercard?
I think it would have been better for Alicia if Matchroom would have won the rights to the fight, because if they would have, it would have happened by now. We would have already saw it, and it would have been on a platform that most boxing fans already recognize. Whereas with this, I've never heard of Brinks TV. I don't know them.
Fubo I know, though I don't actually watch anything on Fubo, but I've heard of them.
Global Combat Collective winning the rights to the fight may get Alicia Baumgardner a little bit more money than what she would have got if Matchroom won the rights to the fight, but Matchroom would have got it done in a jiffy. They would have got it done by now.
So even if she's getting a little bit more money from the fight, it's costed her a lot of time. She's been out for over a year.
You can't attend the fight, you can't go to it, and it's going to be on a platform that likely most boxing fans aren't even familiar with.
Now, the fight itself is a great fight, and it's unfortunate that a great fight...
I feel like a lot of people are going to miss it, as this fight is going to be going head-to-head with Mayer versus Ryan on ESPN that same day. We'll talk more about it as the fight date approaches. Men's heavyweight news. Former champion Andy Ruiz's future plans beyond this weekend. He's looking to run it back with Joseph Parker. And given how their first fight played out, I wouldn't mind that. I think there's a precedence for it.
Fat.
Former unified heavyweight world champion Andy Ruiz has his sights set on a huge rematch with Joseph Parker if he gets past Jarrell Big Gravy Miller in his long-awaited comeback fight at the BMO Stadium in LA tomorrow.
Fat.
The 34-year-old Ruiz, with a record of 35 wins with 2 losses and 22 knockouts, steps through the ropes for the first time since his UD win over Cuban veteran Luis Ortiz back in September of 2022. And the Destroyer is aiming to put the heavyweight division on notice by producing a dominant performance against New York's Jarrell Big Gravy.
Fat.
For me, next it's Jarrell Miller. God willing, we get that win, and hopefully, I'd love to run it back with Joseph Parker, said Ruiz. I'd love to get a rematch, of course. I rate Miller.
Fat.
Any fighter inside that ring is dangerous. You can't underestimate anybody. We've got to be prepared. We've got to be ready for whatever comes our way. We've just got to get that win.
Incredible that Andy Ruiz has only fought 2 times since dropping a decision in the Anthony Joshua rematch way back there in 2019.
Could you believe that he's only fought 2 times since then? And what was that, approximately 4 or 5 years ago? That in the last 4 or 5 years, Andy's only fought twice, and the last time was 2 years ago.
Hey, time flies when you're being fat.
New Zealand's Parker is in the form of his career, following 2 big wins against Deontay Wilder and Zilay Chang in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Ruiz fell short in a close points loss to Parker for the vacant WBO title in New Zealand 8 years ago. And now the California man wants the opportunity to put things right against his old foe, Big Joe.
Oh.
The main thing is just getting a victory, getting back in action, and getting ready to fight those big boys, Ruiz noted. Me personally, I would love to have 2 fights against people that are in the top 10 or top 15. I'll fight against anyone else after this fight. I just want to fight the top guys, the top man. Joseph Parker is doing amazing things right now. He beat Wilder and he beat Chang. I'd love to fight him too.
Andy Ruiz's last 2 fights took place under the PBC banner. The Chris Arreola fight, the Luis Ortiz fight.
In that way, he hasn't fought under the banner in 2 years, and you can make of that what you will, that in the last 2 years, the PBC couldn't find much use for this guy, where Turkey al-Sheikh, he did. Ruiz Jr. had his career on hold to undergo a surgery on his right knee in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico in August of 2021, an injury which ruined his scheduled return to the ring against Charles Martin in October of that year. He returned to earn a unanimous decision win over Luis Ortiz 16 months later. Since then, Ruiz has been out of the ring nearly 2 years, and he makes his long-awaited return this Saturday against Miller. The 34-year-old 34-year-old Ruiz said a fight with Miller has long been overdue, and he believes it is the best time to get the business done in the ring.
Back in the day, he did call me out. We were in Detroit. I had just got winning this fight. He went up to the ring and wanted to fight me. I was like, you know what? Let's do it right now. Let's do it. I'll put on the gloves and we'll get it on. After the years passed, we actually became, I don't want to say we're super good friends, but we kind of became friends.
I like that both professionals, both Jarrell Big Gravy and Andy Porkchop Ruiz, were able to put their differences aside for the name of sport, for the name of business, because so often in the sport right now, what we see is that fighters that are friends, when they campaign at the same weight, they don't fight each other. They don't want to fight each other. Whereas these two...
You remember a couple of years ago, I think it was Demetrius Andre that said he didn't want to fight Danny Jacobs? Or was it the other way around? What we see here
with Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis. Not that a fight between them here and now makes sense, but they've both already made it known that they have no intention of ever facing each other under any circumstances because they're friends.
Andy and Jarrell are friends, but they're going to get it on because that's the assignment, that's the job.
You can keep being friends afterwards. We're friends outside of the ring, but inside the ring, it's business. Jarrell, it's time, man. It's time, buddy. It's time to get back in the ring. I see what you did over there in Saudi Arabia, and now I've got to do what I've got to do, man. It's all business, nothing personal. Let's get it.
Fight!
Before getting the chance to face Parker in a rematch, Ruiz Jr. must go past Brooklyn's Milor, 26-1 with 1 draw and 22 knockouts, who is desperate to return to his winning ways following his 10th round stoppage loss at the hands of Britain's Daniel Dubois on the stacked Day of Reckoning undercard last December. The defeat happens to be the first loss of his pro boxing career, but Ruiz says he will be prepared for whatever Big Gravy has in store for him. I think it's a good fight for me, Ruiz said, especially because I haven't been in the ring for 18 months, and for my shoulder, I'm not saying he's something light or he's an easy fight because of all the fights being hard. You can't underestimate anybody, but I think this is the perfect fight for my comeback.
Fight!
Ruiz versus Miller is part of a blockbuster LA Riyadh season show this Saturday, topped by the unmissable WBA and WBO interim junior middleweight world title clash between pound-for-pound #1 Terrence Crawford and reigning champion Israel Madrimov. In a co-feature, Mexico's Isaac Pitbull Cruz.
He's fighting Rayo.
Look, we know who's on the undercard. It's time to get down to brass tacks, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to make a decision. Who's going to win this weekend? Former champion Andy Ruiz or Jarrell Miller? Because for Ruiz to even make it to that Parker fight or that Joshua trilogy, he has to take care of business first. He has to win this weekend first. Is he going to?
Andy Ruiz weighed in at about 274 pounds, where Jarrell Miller weighed in at 305.
Andy's about 7 pounds heavier than when last we saw him. When last we saw him, he weighed about 268 for the Ortiz fight, where Jarrell Miller is down about 28 pounds. 28 from when last we saw him, which wasn't that long ago in the Daniel Dubois fight. He actually lost weight, considerable weight. But will that really lend itself to Jarrell Miller's performance? So here's what I think. Feel free to disagree. I happen to think Andy Ruiz is not only a stronger puncher, but a sharper puncher than Jarrell Miller. He's actually better mid-range to inside because his punches are more compact. They're shorter and they're tighter.
His punches.
Where Jarrell Miller, due to his limited range of motion, does a lot of arm punches. He slaps with those shots mostly.
Whacks you with them.
I think defensively, Andy is a little better. Offensively, he's a little better. Mid-range to inside. And that is where this fight is going to be fought, because neither one of these guys can make themselves a moving target. They're going to meet in the center of the ring and they're going to let him go.
I think it's going to take Andy a little while to really get started because he's been out so long.
You have to factor in those 2 years of inactivity. You have to. It matters. But it also matters that Jarrell Miller dropped in weight.
You remember when Andy Ruiz lost a lot of weight?
Ahead of the Chris Arreola fight, and how seemingly it made him weaker. It affected his punch resistance. So could Jarrell Miller dropping something in the neighborhood of 30 pounds, could that affect his punch resistance? I think it might.
He is coming off a knockout loss. He did get hit a lot in that Daniel Dubois fight.
That's an intangible that I don't have the answer for. How has that affected Jarrell Miller, as well as the 2 years of inactivity for Andy? How has that affected Andy? There are questions that need answers, which we won't get until both men are in the ring.
So if I have to choose, because I ain't going to ride the fence. I'm not going to be a little pussy like you, little bitch. I'm going to go with Andy. tenuously, I'm going to go with Andy Ruiz, and I'm going to go with Andy Ruiz to win a points decision. I don't know that he can come back after 2 years of inactivity and knock this guy out. I don't know that.
I think Jarrell's going to get off to a decent start, a good start. I think it may take Andy a few rounds to really get into a groove because he's been out for so long. But once he does, he'll take the fight over. I think Jarrell will start off strong, but he'll start to fade down the stretch like he did in the Dubois fight. When he does, Andy will take control.
Show the cleaner work, the cleaner, clearer punches, mid-range to inside. These guys ain't runners. They ain't gonna move around.
They're going to trade mid-range to inside. Catch and shoot mid-range to inside. The majority of this fight is going to be fought within close quarters because they're both close quarters fighters.
But I think Andy's gonna win on points. Either Andy Ruiz wins on points or the fight is scored a draw.
That's my prediction. That's what I'm thinking. Either Andy Ruiz, decision, or a draw.
So it's looking.
And now as it pertains to that same show, financially backed by none other than His Excellency, Mr. Turki Al-Sheikh, Turkey took to his social media and stated, "To everyone and Timothy Bradley included, tickets for Riyadh season card in LA are sold out. Crawford, a true megastar and the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. Very excited for the business opportunities ahead. See you all at the BMO tomorrow."
I think having Isaac Cruz on the card helped. I think having Andy Ruiz on the card helped as well. Two fighters of Mexican descent in an area where several of the people are of Mexican descent. I think that helped.
And I think it also helped that in a very general sense, the West Coast is more fight-oriented in the sport of boxing than, say, the East Coast. The East Coast used to have more fight towns. These days, not so much, whereas the West Coast, there are a lot of boxing fans, boxing gyms, boxing matches taking place. I think that also helped as well to get those
Fight fans.
Los Angelinos the opportunity to see a fighter like Terrence Crawford, who doesn't normally fight in LA.
I think that helped too.
I look at the whole show as a package deal, the card in its entirety, as the card is solid from top to bottom, and you don't normally get undercards as solid as this one here in the US of A, the United States.
A lot of times when it comes to the big name fighters and the shows they headline, the undercards are forgettable. I mean, the undercard for Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, that was forgettable. The undercard for Crawford versus Spence, I can't even remember who was on that.
Whereas this card, there's intriguing fight after intriguing fight after intriguing fight, all leading into Crawford's ring return. It's been a little over a year since he fought. And there has been a desire to see him come back, to see what is he going to do next. So it all lends itself to the show in its entirety. It's not any one fighter or any one fight that's selling it. It's the whole show.
There are a lot of boxing fans on the West Coast.
And I don't think Turkey's exaggerating, because he's not the kind of person that has to.
If he says the show sold out, I believe the show sold out.